Hi guys, and welcome to Accounting with Naomi. In this video today, we're going to work through the 2024 AIN 3701 final exam revision, which was done last year. The reason why I'm bringing back this video because I feel like it's very much relevant to your supplementary exam that you're about to write on Wednesday. So stay tuned until the end to be able to understand the content in detail. Also, do follow through the document that I've sent. If you have any question, please write on the comment section and I will be here to assist you. Now, remember, before you go on, remember that you should like this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Also, share the link with all the groups that you are in, all the AIN 3701 groups, and obviously the FAC's tax and MEC groups as well, because there could be people that are in need of the same revision. So do share the links around, like the video, subscribe, and if you have question, put it on the comment section. Let us continue. All right, guys, welcome to our class today. Welcome to our revision class, AIN 3701. Right, so the beginning of this year, it came as a shock, should I say, came as a shock to everyone. AIN 3701 was a new module last year. Last year it was a new module and it was a continuous assessment kind of module where you just basically did assignments. Yeah, it was just assessments, assessments, and that's it. There was a lot of them, and you just had to do all of them, and then you passed the module. Right. So this year, when the year started, it was sort of a shocking to everyone because now there's an exam for it. So all wondered what to expect in the exam. The material were very similar to the last year material. However, the expectation of exam is just one thing we all had in mind. What to expect in this exam. All right. So I actually got this information that was sent via my Unisa, so I believe you all have it. Okay, if you haven't seen it yet, please go to your my Unisa as well. So they did give a layout of how the exam is going to be. Okay, so the thing is, there is no exam paper. They did not also give an exemplary question or something to expect, but they just gave ideas, what to look out for, what to study, what to focus on. So that's all that was given, what to focus on, but they did not give an example of a question. Like, usually we'll get like exam paper, past exam paper, or maybe a question, a full question just of what to expect in the exam. They did not do that, okay? But they gave us what to look at. All right, so I'm just gonna run through this. Now, one thing about AIN 3701, guys, it's very, very long. The module itself is long, detailed. I'm going to give a summary of things. I'm going to give a summary on what to look at. But I want our attention to really be on VBA and macros because that's where there are codes and that's where there is calculations and stuff. So our main focus is going to be on that. So let's check out what to expect in the exam. All right. So this one, like I said, it's from the announcement that was given to you from your my Unisa. So if you haven't checked it, you can even check it there. All right. Okay, I'm just going to rush through the things that are important. So this was, I think it was in your class or something like that that you did with them, and then they went on. So they spoke about cheating and all those things. I'm going to jump everything that we don't need. Right, so here we are. The exam that you're going to have, they said it's a limited open book exam. Remember, it's no longer venue-based. It's now an online exam. Initially, it was supposed to have been a venue-based exam. All right. So it's a limited open book exam, and you will have to have your pre-seen information and your VBA coding sheet. So these two, you are allowed to have them while you're writing. Now, remember, it's no longer venue-based. So you actually have everything. You're allowed to have everything you want to have. If it means your summary sheet or whatever it is, you're allowed to have everything because it's no longer venue-based. Okay, but this was how they actually anticipated it to be, that you must have the pre-seen information and you have the VBA coding sheet. Let's just stop here. So this pre-seen information, this is basically the scenario. All right, I just want to open the pre-seen. I also have it open here. This is basically the scenario. So you are expected to read this. Guys, you're going to have to do a lot of studying here. Né? You're going to have to do a lot of studying, especially the fact that you're not sure really how the paper is. This is the very first exam. And one thing about first exams, they are usually not difficult, especially when the syllabus changes. When the syllabus changes or they bring in new topics or anything like that, or whoever is going to be tested first time on something, they usually don't make it very hard because they know that you really don't have something that you can work on before. Usually it's not hard, but it usually requires more studying since you have no expectation of what to see, like how the paper is. It means you're gonna have to study much more. Okay, guys. So if you have not been studying, and I noticed that you guys really, AIN people have not really been giving it too much energy, start studying now. As in from today, you're writing on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, 24th, on the 24th. So you're writing on the 24th. It means really, guys, you have quite like what 5 days or 5 days to study. So please start studying and take it really seriously at this point in time if you really want to pass, because the content is a lot, Okay. Right. So what are they saying? The pre-scene information, this is more like your scenario. So you're expected to read this in advance. All right. Read everything that is here. Okay, the purpose, how to use it, and all of that, what's not to do, and then this is where it starts. This is the pre-scene information. They are going to test you based on this information, all right? So you're expected to read this and understand the story. Understand the story, guys, that is here, because when it comes to the exam, the AIN exam that you're writing on Thursday, they will be basing the AIN exam on this story. Now, the principal, you need to know the principle of everything, which you're going to go through just now. I just want to insist on this pre-scene. If you do not have all of these things, guys, I got it from my Unisa. I'm repeating again. I got this from my Unisa. So you have to go to your Unisa, go to your announcement or additional information and look for these, look for the exam layout, look for the pre-scene. So by today, everybody should have the pre-scene information sheet. Read it and understand the story. Okay, I'm not going to read the story with us. This is for you to read. Read it again and again. Understand this story very well so that when you come on Thursday and they make reference to this story or scenario that you have, then you should have already an idea so you can be faster. One thing or one problem that we've been having since exam started, or even when people that usually write tests and things like that, one issue we've been having is many people are not submitting. Okay, many people are not submitting because time is closing on them and time is just never enough. You know how accounting is, time is just never enough, and students just are not submitting, and so that is one of the main issues that we are having. So I am begging you guys, please and please make sure you read this in advance so that you don't waste time in the exam. If you're going to read this for the first time during exam time, you may not finish. Like there's a high chance that you will not finish the paper. Okay. So please, everybody, please send information, go and download it and read it. You can read it at night today or whichever day you want to read it, but make sure you have read it. And guys, it's quite a number of pages. It's quite a number of pages. I can see it's quite the number of pages that you have to go through. This is just you reading. You don't have to cram anything because you're gonna have it with you. So you can read, highlight, underline, print it out if you can, or whatever the case is. Just make sure you have it with you so that when they make reference to it on Thursday, then you know you have seen it before. It's not like you're seeing it for the first time. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're gonna do. Make sure you go through this pre-scene information. Let me go back there. Then you're gonna have your VBA coding sheet. This is going to help you guys while doing your codings because we really don't know what they're going to touch on. But I decided I'm going to work on assignment 2 with you guys. We're going to rework on assignment 2 with you guys. I even saw the mistake we did. We're going to rework on assignment 2 with you because it touches almost everything on coding on VBA. All right, so that's what I decided to do with you guys. So I've noticed that VBA is going to be tested the most is the one with the most marks. Actually, we're gonna go through it just now. So you need the pre-scene information. We have already seen it. This is just for you to read through. Then you need the VBA coding sheet. This one basically is just reminding you of the things you need to know on VBA. All right, basically. Okay, this is just it's more like a summary. Not necessarily a summary, but it's just picking the items that you need to know. Like, for example, an integer. What is an integer? A whole number between this to this. What is a long? Is a whole numbers between 2,000, sorry, between 2 million and 2 million and whatnot. This single is a decimal number with 7 digits of precision, and so forth and so forth. So this is just reminding you, for example, on the how to declare variables and stuff. But you have to do, we're going to do a summary again on VBA, guys. I'm insisting VBA, I believe, is the one that's going to carry a lot of marks. So it has to be really understood, okay? So that's what it does. These two, you must have it with you, guys. I would advise that you print it out, okay? So you have 5 days now. So go and print it out. If you don't have a printer at home, you can print it at work. If you're working, if you're not working, go to an internet cafe, print the pre-scene information, print the VBA coding sheet, because those are the ones you need to have with you while you are busy doing the exam. All right, I'm just going through it. All of this is in my Unisa. I download it and print it out. All right, let's go back. So these two you need to have. Then you go back. Where was I think I went back to them from beginning. Okay, like I said, I'm skipping anything that is not necessary. I want to look at only what is going to help us. Right, so here we are. These are the resources that you need. So let's go down. Okay, you are warned not to use AI. All right, don't try to automate anything by using any form of, because they also say that is also like cheating. It's more like somebody writing for you as well. So that's just warning you on that aspect. That's not really important for us. Okay, right. So this is how the process should be. That the information, get your pre-scene information pack, right? On the day, on the 24th, you're going to download the exam paper and you're going to download the data sets. Guys, another thing is, remember, you need to have Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365, that's what you need to have in your laptop, because some of the Excel functions will not work on your any other version. Okay, especially when you start with dashboards. So you need Microsoft 365. Okay. Don't forget your Excel sheets, because most of the work will be done on the Excel. So you have the exam paper, then have the question, and then you have the Excel where you're going to be answering. Please don't forget that aspect and make sure you're in order. If your laptop is not good, borrow, please, for the day. All right. Please borrow. Make sure that the laptop is working well. Please have a plan B, because I know one thing about technology. One thing about technology is it can just decide to go off that day. So please have like 2 laptops that you have. Okay, borrow one from a friend or somebody, but just borrow one, please. So that you have 2, and make sure you have Microsoft 365 so that all the functions are able to work. Like, for example, XLOOKUP, they do not work on any other version except 365, Microsoft 365. So please check those things. How was your experience while you're doing the assignment? Assignment 3, how was your experience? Did it give you issue on your laptop? All right, when you're running your codes, was your codes running from that laptop? That is already a warning to tell you that, guys, don't try this again. All right, so please check that. You're going to download the exam paper and the data set, and then at some point you'll need to convert the Word to PDF, and remember, especially your Excel, it has to be macro enabled. All right, it must not just be an Excel folder. When you're saving it, you have to save it to an Excel macro enabled. Otherwise, the VBA code will not run. Guys, that's the most painful thing, is that after you have done so well in your coding and your coding is 100%, but the markers are not able to see your code because you did not save it in a macro enabled format. You just save it as a normal Excel. It means they cannot see your VBA codes. Okay, just be careful with that. All right. Then okay, I think I'm no longer going to talk about the pre-scene information. I've already talked about it. I've already spoke about this. Yes, this is the most important of today. All right, this is the exam composition. Like I said, they did not give us an exam paper per se. It means just focus on these elements. Study. So there's going to be a lot of studying. All right. Now let's continue. So this is the composition. They put everything in 3. They placed it in 3. So you have part 1, part 2, part 3. That is why when I sent you guys, I resent all the work we have done. I've also laid it down in parts to say this is part 1, this is part 2, this is part 3. So that when you are studying, it will also assist you. All right. So the first part is where you have your automation, which is learning units 2, 3, and 4. This is basically where you have your macros and your VBA, all right? So this is the biggest one. So it says 30 to 40, between 30 to 40. Another big one is also data analytics. Please take note that data analytics also includes dashboards. Dashboard is one of the big topics as well. Data analytics on its own, dashboard also, two are very big topics. We have done them in details, guys. Remember, I've also resent the recordings. Okay, so those ones, learning unit 5 and 6, it's also between 30 to 40. All right. Then lastly, emerging technologies and cybersecurities. These two are mainly theory. All right. The last ones are mainly theory. So what I advise with this is that you read through the theory and you summarize for yourself. Summarize it in a way that it will help you, and take the summary with you when you're writing. That's my advice with the last one. Okay, emerging technologies and cybersecurity. Read, summarize, take the summary with you in case you need to use. You're just gonna use it in the. You're just gonna help you in the exam. Simplify yourself. So where is our main focus? These two are our main focus. Learning unit 2, 3, 4. That is automation. So it's automation, data analytics, and dashboard. Those are our main focus because that's where you do functions. That's where dashboards. You actually have to create a dashboard, practical work basically. And then with automation, that is where you actually have to automate the task. That's where you have to do your codings and stuff. So the first two part 1 and part 2, are the major. While you are studying, you're going to focus on those two because the last one, just do summaries and put your paper there, put your summary with you, take it with you. Okay. Right. Okay, they even telling you ensure that you study everything. That's what I'm saying. There's gonna be quite a number of study, but you have to be strategic about it. Guys, one thing about study, one thing about exam and everything, it's about strategy. You've got to be strategic about things. If you're just gonna throw yourself in a book that has a lot of content, you may even lose courage or motivation to study. All right. That is why you have to be very, very strategic about things. That's what I'm saying. The last two, just do summary. The automation, now you have to make sure you understand VBA, how it works, the practical side of things, because it's going to be application now. It's not gonna ask you to explain what VBA is. Maybe they can, just for you to get those easy marks, just to be encouraged. But it's the application that is going to be tested the most. If it's 50 marks, for example, the application will be at least 45 or at least 40 out of 50 will be application. All right. Then the other one could be theory. They can ask your opinion and then they just to push you to encourage you, because normally the paper is not supposed to be difficult throughout, right? There are those easy marks that are just there so that you just feel encouraged to continue writing. Eh? Anyways, let's continue. So that's the layout, guys. This is the most important. When you are studying, even when you are putting your things together, please help yourself by creating small summaries that you check with in the exam. In case you get stuck, you can just say, okay, in VBA, I wrote this summary down. Then you can just take it out and say, oh, I can't remember what is the function again. Then you go and, oh, function is, it will help you guys. That is another strategy. Okay. So take advantage of the fact that it's an online exam. So these are it. And then they went further to break it down. All right. After giving you this exam composition, they went down to break it down to tell you the items to focus on. All right. So computational thinking, learning unit 1, this one is not really gonna be examined, but it's just a what you call like a layout, because computational thinking is every other thing that you're doing. Every other topic comes back to computational thinking, but it's not going to be examined on its own. All right. Then learning unit 2, 3, and 4, automations and VBA. Remember, this is the part 1 that we're talking about. This is your part 1. So you need to code a solution using VBA. Content that can be assessed is in coding covered in learning unit 3 and 4 and AIN3601. Guys, if you see the recording that I've sent you, I've also sent you sorry, I've also sent you things from AIN3601, because that's what makes up your coding. And if you check it, there's quite a lot of, it's like I sent you guys a lot of things. That's how it is, guys. AIN is that long. Remember, it's a year module, so it's that long. Okay. But when you begin to watch the recording, it's not going to be that long. And you have to be practicing. Practice along. Okay. Please, I know I did not send you guys like the Excel sheet or the questions I've used or anything like that. Just let me know if you need, when you start working on them and you need a particular question, just let me know, because I have sent them on the groups before. You can even check on the group media, but if you don't see them on the group media, you can just ask me. I'll check them out. I just wanted to focus on the recording so I can get you a proper layout, okay, of things. So when you need questions and stuff, just remind me. And then it says use the VBA coding sheet. I think we already spoke about that, the VBA coding sheet, but you can't use it if you don't even understand what VBA is. Okay, which we're gonna do now in a few minutes. Right. And then they say study the theory in learning unit 2. This is just to read through to understand. Right, that was the part 2. This is so the main thing is to understand the coding. Right. They also said macro recorder will not be assessed. Macro, this is where you record. Recording macros is for second year. They test that in second year. In third year, they're not testing recording macros. They are testing you actually writing codes that works. So it is you writing codes, not recording a macro. Recording a macro is when you're recording the process that you're doing in Excel. So you're telling Excel to record everything and create a code for you. They're not gonna test you on that. Okay. Just like that. So it means, guys, VBA, you have to understand VBA in detail. Right. Then data analysis. One thing about data analysis is a mixture of application and theory. All right. So the good thing, it's like a 50-50. It's a 50% theory, 50% application. All right. That's the good thing about it. I'm talking about data analysis as in unit 5. That's the good things about it. And then they're telling you what to focus your energy on. Critical areas, data cleaning, and learn table 5.1, and know how to apply it, including activity 5.5. They're even telling you which activity to pay attention to. So guys, this is the syllabus, guys. This is the syllabus, and pay attention to this, especially this part where they're telling you in detail that study data cleaning. Make sure you do section 5.6.4. Make sure you do the activity 5.5. Hey guys, that is what you're running into. You're doing that. That's what you're doing. So these 5 days, guys, dedicated to AIN. All right, dedicated to AIN so that you can pass. So remember, we have not seen a previous exam paper of AIN, but with these guidelines, we should be able to do well. All right. Then the statistic now, you see, even data cleaning has an aspect of application. I think I did a class on that where I actually went on to Excel to show you how you can clean your data. All right. Statistics, now you're gonna look at the aspects of statistics. They've been telling you where 5.7.1 and sections 5.7.2 includes activity 5.6. So you focus on those elements. Predictive analysis, this is the most important. So the last section here, predictive analysis, we did I think 2 classes on that, if I'm not mistaken. That one, guys, must be understood. That is application. So they will give you scenario and give you items, and you have to do the predictive analysis. That's where you do regression, your regression analysis, your regression function, your scatter plots, and then also have to comment or explain how they work. All of that, very important. Okay. And then they're telling you to focus on activity 5.7 as well. So that is for data analysis unit 5. That was one of the longest topics we did, apart from VBA. All right. So the good thing, like I said, the good thing about it is 50% theory, 50% practical. But what I'm seeing here, what they decide to test has more of the application side of things, more practical side of things than the theory. Because data cleaning is already on Excel. And then you're cleaning, that is where maybe data was just thrown at you, and you're trying to arrange them to make sense, remove duplicates, remove things that are not important, empty spaces, maybe create tables on them, move them to charts, just to make sense, things like that. So basically, that's what you're doing there. So it is application, it is practical. Statistics as well, it is practical. You do that in Excel as well. Predictive analysis, the same thing. So they actually focusing their attention on the practical side of data analysis, not the theory side. Okay. Right. Then you go to dashboard. Guys, dashboard, we did this. And dashboard, if I have to start with it, is another very long topic. So I'll see how best I can summarize things, but I really advise you guys to also take your time to go through those recordings that I've sent. Okay. So dashboards, best practices. So I want you to go through the best practices, which is the theory you're reading to understand. Then you need to be able to evaluate a dashboard. All right. The new functions, these ones are very, very key. The new functions are like, let me even highlight. And we did this, guys, in much details. This is what I was talking about, where you need Microsoft 365. Okay. Otherwise, most of these functions are not going to work. So you sit there in the exam and you get frustrated because you're trying XLOOKUP and it's not working. All right. So please just work on that as well. Please borrow. It's only for that time. Okay. Then they want you to learn how to do charts. You can even revise 1501 and 2601. I think we did charts together in that class as well. Also know what chart should be chosen. Okay. So here it is the function, it is the chart. So it's the again it is the application side of things. So it's the function that you need to know. Best practices, this is just theory. All right. So this one is theory. Read this, understand, so that when you apply it on your dashboard, it should not give you issues. All right. Then functions, charts. All right. Then interactive controls. This is also very, very important. Interactive controls, adding a button, combos, all those things, very, very important. Then they say you must learn this video. Okay, so you give it attention. Right, so that is on dashboards, dashboard, data analysis, and VBA. These three are quite long activities, so try and make it simple for yourself. Guys, emerging technology and cybersecurity are theory. Theory. I even did a class in emerging technology. It was just theory beginning to end. We're just looking at different technologies that are coming out, right? So you just need to know those technologies and how to apply them. Because they can't give you a scenario. Now you have to tell us which technology can solve this situation. You need to know the advantage and the disadvantage, things like that, guys. It's theory, all right? Make a summary, put it down on the paper, take that summary along with you in the exam. So whenever you get stuck and you find the scenario, then you remember, okay, I read this, but you have to read it, guys. Don't write things you have not read because you won't be able to find the solution during exam. So you must have read it, understood it, but because you don't want to cram anything, remember, we don't want to do any cramming at this point in time because it may panic you. You don't want to panic. In the exam, once you begin to panic in the exam, already failing is coming. So we don't want panic at all. Read it, understand it, write it down. Don't cram anything. All right. Once you understand it and you're able to go back and see it, say, oh, this is what they're talking about, then you'll be able to apply it very well. That's emerging technology. Then they're also saying focus on artificial intelligence. Focus on that aspect that talks about artificial intelligence, which is in learning unit 2. Remember, this is learning unit 7. So you have to go back to learning unit 2 where it talks about artificial intelligence and also look at that. Right. Then cybersecurity again, cybersecurity, guys. This is a very interesting topic. This is where we are protecting our systems, we're protecting our computers, we're protecting our data from hackers. All right, people that want to hack into your let's say company system, people that want to hacking into your computer, hacking into your banking. Ooh, that one's worse. That one is worse. I remember my brother once. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he went to the wrong ATM or what. He was trying to take money and the card was blocked. So while he was going to buy airtime so he can call the bank to block the card, because you know when the card gets stuck on the ATM, yeah. So now trying to get airtime to call the bank, and just on his way to buy airtime, money was just leaving. Like money was just notification that money has been withdrawn from his account. So yeah, I remember how frustrated he was. It was just when he got his salary. So those are some of the things that we're talking about. Hackers, right? So it's good that technology is emerging. It's good that we all, trying to be as paperless as possible, moving and updating and everything. But it also comes with dangers. All right. Hackers everywhere. Hackers everywhere. Be careful with those adverts where they'll send you something and then say click on a link. You may just be bringing in a virus which will use against you later. Right? So don't ever, even when they send you things like let's say you want something. Remember, you did not play any competition, but they send you a message to say, no, you want 1 million. Then there's a link or something that you must click on. Be careful with such things. All right. So that's what they're talking about in cybersecurity. I'm sure you can already see it. Eh? It's a very interesting topic. This one is one of the shortest. I think it's the shortest topic in AIN3701. So you just have to understand. And also they want you to understand the types. I've sent you guys the notes that I have down. You can write it in your own words. So you have your neat notes and just keep it aside so that you can use it on the exam. So the types of malware, all right. Public key cryptography, it's also there. Encryption, digital signatures, it's also there. Read also that element. This is just theory, really nothing to be worried about. It's just a read and summarize situation. Okay, so guys, that is what you expected. That is what they expect from you in the exam. This is all they give. There's no question that we can say, oh, this is the question that let's do this one. Maybe the question is going to be similar. There's no such a thing. They didn't give a question bank as well to say, we've got similar questions and stuff. They didn't do that. So this means you're going to sit and you're going to study. Go back to the recordings and things like that. All right. So anyways, let us do our summary. If we have to now go back to the beginning, all right, now that we know what's what, let me just go back to that expertise here. Now that we know what's what, we know that I need to focus on automations, which is mainly the VBA part. I need to focus on data analytics and the dashboard. Data analytics, I'm focusing on the application side of things, the statistics, the data cleaning, the regression analysis, and then dashboards, I'm focusing on the functions, the new functions that we're doing, creating the dashboard itself, and also the interactive controls, right? Then imaging technology and cybersecurity, we're just going to read. So basically, now that we know that, let's go and try to summarize this. Now, should I say bad part of this is that most of you guys have not been studying at all. All right, I understand that. So most of you have not been, because people usually undermine AIN, all right? You undermine AIN since they have not been tested, things like that. So you're undermining AIN and like, I'll look at that later when it's close to exam, all right? That attitude can be problematic. Remember now, exam is now very close, okay? So I'm going to try my best to simplify life for you. But from now until the exam, guys, you have to study, okay? All right? I'll try my best to simplify life for you, but it's just a lot of work, and we'll do the best that we can do. So let us start. We're going to do some summaries, and after these summaries, I'm going to redo the assignment 2 with you guys, assessment 2, which was covering VBA in codes, macros, right? Which was covering that. I'm going to do that with you guys so that it can be a practical side of things after we have seen the summary, because like I said, most of you have not been studying. Some of you have been studying, others have not been studying, just to bring us together so we can all work together. We're going to take it back to the beginning of VBA, and then we're going to do the assessment of VBA, and maybe later on look at data analytics as well. All right. So let us go. So I want us to now, we're going to do our summary. So that's my summary place. And then we want to start with automations and VBA. Automation. Now, like I said, the content is too much. So my summary is going to be really, really direct. To try not to write everything because it is very long. Okay, it's going to be really direct, and I'm going to do a practical question with you guys so that you can see how it is done, so that you can then decide where you are. If you have been studying, then it's good, you continue that way. If not, then you can go back to the beginning again, relearn again VBA, just to be sure. But at least I would have put you somewhere with the summary and the practical work that we're going to do. All right. So basically, automation. All right. So what is it? Automation. Automation is a technological intervention, all right, aimed at minimizing human intervention. Okay, so it's a technological intervention aimed at minimizing human intervention. So what are we trying to say? Basically, automation has come to help us to minimize the work that we have done. All right. Imagine what we used to do in the past. You would cook rice, and the next day you want to warm the rice. You take it to the stove, and then you begin to wait for it. So you begin to stir and stir and stir. Right, they've now brought microwave. I don't have to take all those time. I can just put it in the microwave, put it to be 2 minutes or in 1 minute or in 3 minutes, whatever you like your food. I like my food hot, like hot. I don't know how you like yours, but yeah. So depending on how you like, you can put it on the microwave and then put how many minutes it wants, and then it will do the work for itself. So it has minimized the kind of work you're supposed to do. Instead of standing on the hot day and be staring and staring and staring, it has minimized that. That is what automation is about. Okay, I've just used the microwave because I can see we all will understand that. Okay. And the technology has made life easy for us. Imagine you can just sit in your house. You don't have to stand to even switch off the lights. You can just like clap your hands and then the light is off or it's on. You know, you just get to the door. There's some places where you just get to the door opens itself. You get in. Those automations Actually, I'm not a fan of a smart house. I am not a fan. I don't know, guys, but I'm not a fan of a smart house. Like, what? I understand it's technology, but yo, my goodness. Imagine you get to a house, everything is just moving around. So you get there, the door opens, you get there, the bed moves next to you, the light switch on its own, everything is just happening on its own, right? So technology has a good side of it, it also has a bad side of it. Okay? It is meant, so the first idea is that it's here to minimize the work that humans are doing, right? It is here to help us do things quicker, do things faster, where a human being doesn't have to do much. But then, like I said, it also has a disadvantage. It can also make us very, very lazy, right? It can make us very lazy, and it's going to affect our mind even. So it's like, it even makes our brain not to work properly, because imagine you are in a place where everything is just moving to you. Everything is just moving up and down, up and down, up and down. That's why I say I don't like smart houses. Everything is just moving to you. Everything is just moving around. The cupboards are opening, everything is moving. It can even affect your brain. So as much as it's good, it can also be bad. So that's what automation is about, guys. Trying to simplify things, trying to make things easy. All right. So let's just make a little note on that. Automation. Okay. So technological intervention aimed at minimizing or reducing human intervention. Right, so that's what automation is, okay? Now, are they going to ask you to define this? Maybe not. There's a 95% chance that they won't ask you to define this, all right? But are they going to ask you to apply this? Definitely. There's a 99% chance that they will ask you to apply this. You see the difference here? So when you are studying, don't study like, like your first year module where you're doing business studies, where they will just cram things, and they'll ask you define this, list this, guys, in here, it's third year, all right? Now, it is not going to be about explain what is an automation. It's going to be about apply. I give you a scenario, and then you have to apply this automation in a scenario. That's what you're doing. So when you're studying, study in that level. Study in that level, in a level to say, if this and this happen, then I should be able to apply. That is why I'm using practical examples. I'm using live examples so that even you in the example, even you when you're studying, you also be using practical examples. So when you see a scenario in the exam, it's not going to be anything scary. It's not going to scare you. All right. Then VBA now. Let's look at VBA. Guys, VBA is simply put together. It's a programming language. I don't even want to put it in, I don't want to say a lot about it. It's a programming language. Okay, but the thing is, this is not the only programming language. There are different programming languages out there. People that are doing data analysis, people that are doing programming, people that are doing IT, people that are doing information systems and stuff, they know better. There is a lot of programming languages out there. So VBA, first of all, it stands for Visual Basic for Application. So if in case you don't know, Visual Basic for Application. Guys, please stop me if I'm too fast. I'm trying to not be too slow, because I understand the element of content that we're gonna have to go through. All right, so the content is quite a lot. That is why I'm trying to be as fast as possible, but I don't want to be too fast for you. So in case you feel like I've moved fast or anything like that, just tell me, Naomi, please repeat this. Naomi, please re-explain this or something like that. Ne? Please let's just communicate with one another, all right? Because this is really for you. It's meant to help you to be ready for the 24th, which is on Thursday. Right, so VBA is a programming language. Programming language that allows one to automate tasks in Excel. So they use Excel. Now, other programming languages do not actually use Excel, all right? So like I say, if you're doing data analysis, if you're in programming, or if you're doing IT or anything in that field, you will know more there, right? These ones, you use Excel. Okay, so it allows you to automate tasks in Excel by creating macros and other functions. By creating macros and other functions. Okay, but why am I giving you this? Because I want you to have an understanding of what you are doing, not because they're going to test you to explain what a VBA is. Like I say, there's a 95% chance that they may not ask it. There's a 5% chance they may ask it. Okay, we do not know. We have not seen the paper before. Okay, but one thing for sure, this level, it's about application. All right, so now that we move from there, in the VBA, there are different structures. There are three structures that we use. We call programming structures. We need to know those, guys. Those are very important. So we've got three programming structures that we follow. Every time I'm writing a VBA, I need to know which structure am I following. All right. So the commonly used one, the commonly number one, this is the most used, is the sequence. All right, sequence is the most commonly used programming structure when dealing with VBE. Okay, so what is this sequence? This one is where there is a pattern to doing things. All right, so this is a series of actions, completed in a specific order. Okay, so in other words, they have to be like, you know what you're saying, computational thinking, that's topic one. They have to be patterns to things. So we're saying, for example, I am going out. For me to go out, first of all, okay, let's just go back to the beginning. I was sleeping, I have to wake up, take my bath, get ready, right? If I'm driving, I get into the car and then I drive to wherever I'm going. Do you understand? So there's a pattern like that. Okay, let's say I'm cooking. For me to cook, I need to know first of all what am I cooking, and then I need to have the ingredient that I need to cook. I need to know which one I'm starting with first, where am I going first, all those things. So that's a pattern. So it's a sequence like that, right? So this programming structure follows a sequence that step one must happen first, then step two will happen, then step three will happen, then step four will happen, right? That is a sequence programming structure. Like I said, that's the one that is commonly used, mostly used, and that's the one you're going to use a lot, okay? That's the sequence. Then the other VBA programming structure is the selections. Selection. Okay, with selection here, it's about the question. So we also want steps, but for us to get to the next step, we ask a question first. Okay. All right. So a question is asked to figure out what the next reaction is, or to determine the next reaction. Determine the next action, sorry, next action. So with this one, unlike the series where we have step one, step two, here we need to first ask a question. The question will determine which one we're gonna go with. Okay. For example, let me go back to I want to go out. I want to go out to the mall today. Now I have to ask myself, is it raining? All right. So if it is raining, I'm no longer going out. I'll stay indoor. So my next step will now be stay indoor. But if it is not raining, then I will go out because it's not raining. The weather is conducive for me to go out. For example, let's say I have a picnic. For us to go to a picnic, but we're in the park, and the weather has to be good for us to be in the park. If the weather is not good, we won't be in the park. So basically, that's what a selection is. It asks a question to get to determine the next step. Depending on the answer, then you will know which step to take next. Okay, so that is selections. Now, when you're doing your VBA coding and stuff, you have to also note if this requires selection. For example, if it says need a condition for us to work with, all right, for us to be able to do something, we need a condition, then you know that I'm using selections. Then the last one is loops. Loops are, I believe, to be the most difficult. All right, and it's not commonly used, especially with a student like In this level, they're not expecting you to really use a lot of loops, right? Use loops only when necessary, but you have to understand what it is. Okay, so loops also ask question, but they're different, right? So what loops does, it asks a question over and over again. So it keeps asking the question until a certain task is complete. A certain task is complete. Right, that's loops. So loops, we keep asking, we ask until it's, so it's different. Selections, you ask, then you get the result to know if which steps you're going to take after that result. But loops is not the same. Loops, you ask until it is done. Okay. For example, I wanted to say woman giving birth, but that one may be too much. Let me not use that. Let me say you're going to have your teeth removed, right? They want to remove your tooth, maybe it's damaged, it's rotten, or whatever the case is, by the dentist. So the dentist is removing the tooth, they're trying to pick it out. I don't know how they do this process, but they're trying to take it out. So they'll ask the question, is it out? No, it's not yet out. Then they do it again. Is it out? No, it's not yet out. Then they do it again. So that's what loops does. We'll keep asking the same question until the tooth is completely out. Then the pattern is done. The process is done. Okay, so it's just like that. So step one, you pull the tooth. Is it out? No, it's not yet out. We do step two, pull it again. Is it out? No, it's not yet out. We do step three, pull it until we reach the time when it is out and we stop. So loops is more like that. Okay, so loops is like that. You keep asking the same question over and over and over and over until the task is done. Another example that they actually used in the study, guys, they said count. For example, count to 20. So you keep counting until 20 is reached, and the loop stops. So count again. Are we in 20? Not yet. Count again. Are we in 20? Not yet. Count again until we reach 20. Then loops ends. Okay. So that's what loops is about. Those are the three programming structures that you're going to deal with when you're dealing with VBA. So we spoke about automation in VBA. I spoke about what automation is. Then when I come to VBA, I now used automation also in VBA. So it's a programming language that is used to automate tasks. So it brings this into this, and now we're taking the VBA. So we move from here to VBA. Now we are taking it to the programming structure to say, now that I understand what VBA is, these are the structures that I need to follow when I'm busy with my VBA. All right. So before we continue, there's also another aspect that you need to understand. There is macro recorder versus VBA code. I think I mentioned it in the beginning. So we have macro recorder versus VBA code. Okay, we need to understand the difference between the two. All right. I remember they said in the beginning that macro recorder is not going to be examined. It's only the VBA code that will be examined, but you need to understand the difference between the two. Okay, guys, remember we are summarizing. So we're really going to like the deep things, what we need. All right. Macro recorder, this happens when you are recording the task that you're doing. So basically, this is called a self-generating VBA code tool. It's a self-generating VBA code tool. So here what you do is you record the task being done, and then VBA gives you the code. Should I say VBA will create the code for you using those tasks that you recorded. So I'm just gonna go there. I go to my developer tab, then I go to record task, record macro, all right, and then it will record everything that I'll be doing in Excel. So it is the easiest way to do things, but sometimes it has its limits, does not go very far. We cannot do, for example, when it comes to programming structure, that only works with sequence. All right. So macro recorder only works with sequence because of that step 1, step 2, step 3, different tasks that you are doing. All right. It only works with that. When it comes to selection and loops, it's not limited. This is where the limit comes with macro recording. It's the limit comes now with selection and loops. No, this one you have to go and actually write down the code because you have to give us a condition. What is the condition? What must happen if this condition is applied? If this condition is not applied, what must happen? So you cannot do that now with macro recording, right? But macro recorder is easy. It's good. It's easy to use. For somebody who does not understand programming that much, it's easy to use because what am I saying? I'm just going to my Excel. I'm saying, this is the task I do every day. I want you to automate it for me. I don't know how to write a VBA code. So all I'll do is I'll do the task. I'm just going to press record macro. Then I do that task. For example, if every week I calculate sales in this way, all I have to do is to go there and do the way I calculate sales, and then the macro will record it. So for next week, instead of me doing the same sales calculation, I'm just going to go to run the macro that I've recorded. I'm going to run it, and then it's automatic, show everything that I did last week. The next week again, I'll just do that, run the macro, and it will show everything. So when you go now underneath, when you go to the VBA code, that's when you will actually see that the code is being done while I am automating the task. Okay, so it is the easiest way to do things for somebody who does not know how to write a code. All right, but like I said, the limitation comes that it only uses a sequence, not selections or loops. Then the VBA code on the other side, this is where you actually have to create the code. You have to manually create code on VBE. The Visual Basic Editor. That's what it's called, the Visual Basic Editor. All right, so please note the difference. So in AIN3601, all right, this is where they introduced, when they introduced VBA, this was there and it is tested in AIN3601. But in AIN3701, we are going to be tested on VBA codes. But does it mean we should not know this? Just know it. But now that you are studying, please don't study this. All right? Now that you're studying, don't study this. But for the sake of knowledge, you need to know it. But for the exam, you only need to know the VBA code, how to write a code. That's what you need to focus on. All right. Any questions so far? Any question? Okay, do we understand so far? We all together so far? Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. Right, so let's continue. Now that we have done that, we now have to go and look at the coding, and we cannot talk about codes without talking about the structure. So we're going to talk about it together. Codes goes together with structure, right? So we have three programming structure. The first one is sequence. That's the one I'm going to start with, and this is where I'm going to touch most of the things. Remember, that's the one that is highly used. So we're going to start with sequence. I'm going to start with sequence. Like I said, I'm not going into much detail. I'm going straight to what I need, and I'm going to focus on what I need. All right. So under sequence, we need to understand that for us to actually do a VBA code, we have to use sub procedure or function procedure. Okay, there are two procedures that is done. Either use the sub procedure or function procedure. Now that one is applicable to all the programming language, structure, sorry, all the programming structure, whether sequence, selections, or loops. You have to create a sub procedure or a function procedure. All right, all the time. Okay. Now, let me even pause here. If you have never seen any recording, no video, or you've never done VBA at all before, it means you will not have the developer tab. Please go through that class, the very first recording I sent on VBA. It was AIN3701 VBA. Go through that class so that you know how to actually bring your developer tab on your Excel. Okay, please go through that, because in this class, the assumption is that you have at least known that because you've done it a long time ago. That's the assumption. So if you haven't done it, please just go to that recording. It's going to help you on how to get your developer tab on. Okay. Anyways, I'm going to continue from here. So we have two procedures that you can apply. The most commonly used is the sub procedure. I'm going to explain what that is. So let me just do like this. So we have sub procedure. That's the one we use most of the time when we are doing our codes. Right, we're going to have to explain what this is. Okay, I want you to pay attention to this. But the application, again, like I said, the application is the most important. Here, we just explain what this is, and I'm going to show you guys practically how to do that as well. So a sub procedure is a group of VBA. It's a group of VBA statements that perform an action or sequence of actions within a program. Okay, so that's what a sub procedure is, guys. 1 minute, I'll be with you now. Oh, guys, sorry about that. I just wanted to move my baby. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. Okay, a start procedure is a group of VBA statements that performs an action or sequence of actions within a group. So you cannot start your VBA without, first of all, bringing in a sub procedure. So you always have to start with the sub procedure. Then sub procedure, if let's say you're doing salary calculation. So sub procedure, salary calc, and then you open and close your bracket, enter, and then you start your VBA. Okay. If you don't do that, it will not give any code. It's more like when we are writing, remember when you are writing a function or a formula in Excel, we always say equals to, and then we start, right? That shows us, it tells Excel that you're about to bring in a formula. But if you just write anything, it's just going to be any other input. But if you put equals to sign before you're about to start, it's already automatically tells us this is going to be a formula, this is going to be a function. So with VBA code, you start with a sub procedure or a function procedure, which you're going to do later before you start your code. Otherwise, the code will not run. Okay. Anyways, so basically, guys, that is a sub procedure, and now let's go into the coding themselves. So how to write codes. Okay. So they go in this direction. So I need to have an object. All right. I need to have an object that I'm gonna write my code. Then I need to be able to name that object. All right. Then I need to check the property that I want to focus on. Property, and then it has to be now the action. What is the action that this property must do? Okay, so guys, this is what the order you follow when you're writing codes. Of course, they get more as you go, but this is the order that you usually follow. Okay, it's to say what is the object, the going further into the name of the object, what properties, and the action. Okay, so you follow that every time you are writing down a code. And then now let's go down to writing a code. What should you pay attention to? All right. What are you paying attention to? So you pay attention to, guys, for more details about codes and VBA, please go through those recordings that I've sent on the group. Remember, this is just a summary with expectation that at least you have, you're not blank, you have done VBA before. Okay. So if you haven't, you are still good. We are not neglecting you. There are still those recordings that we have done. Maybe you joined the class later or late, or maybe you just got serious about AIN late. Maybe you registered late. But the recordings of the classes that was done before you came in, I resent it. So you go through them again. Okay. Right. So what are you supposed to pay attention to? Right. Number one, assigning values. This is the most important of VBA. So number one, assigning values. Okay. This, like I said, the most important part of VBA. So to assign values, all right, it's basically trying to write something in Excel using VBA. For example, I want to write Naomi. I want to write Naomi, but I'm using VBA to write Naomi. I want to write student number, but I'm using VBA to write student number. I want to write even a sentence, anything that I want to write so that it will just put it there. For example, I just want to write Naomi. I want to write Naomi using a code so that it shows in Excel, to show in Excel. All right. Then that's using VBA. That is assigning values. Okay. Now, how do we do that? With writing codes, this object that we're talking about, the object, we can use range object, we can use cells object, they're actually more. But VBA, guys, is very broad, just like Excel. Excel is broad. Like, I don't think there's somebody who can teach the whole Excel. Right? I don't know, because it's broad and every time it keeps on upgrading. They keep upgrading it. So the formulas that you know, if you are very good in Excel, you see those formulas you know, there are still formulas that you'll be shocked if somebody comes to teach you, be like, there's a formula like this. That's how Excel is broad, guys. It's seriously broad. So is VBA. VBA is very broad. So that means we cannot, even if we want to teach you everything, we cannot teach you everything. We'll teach you the basics, the fundamentals, and then you can learn as you go. Play around with it. I always say, guys, play around with your Excel, because Excel is a very powerful tool. Play around with it. Because the more you would spend time in Excel, you will just learn new things that we've never taught you before. Same thing. So when we focus on the object, we focus on range objects and sales objects. I'm going to explain the two difference now. This one was also covered in AIN3601. I'm going to explain the difference. All right, by using an example. For example, I want to write AIN3701, but to write it via a code. How do I do that? So I'm going to use both range and sales. I want this to be written in. So I must know where I want it to go to. I want this to be written in A1. In my spreadsheet in cell A1. Cell A1 is where I want it to be written in. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to say range. I'm going to use range and I'm going to use sales. You can decide which one you want to use, whether you want to use range or sale. But most of the time we use range. It's easier to work with range than to work with sales. Okay, a range object. It's easier to work with range object than working with sales object. So especially if Excel becomes broader as you go, especially when you begin to use what you call like selection and loops, all right? It's better to use range objects. Okay, so let's start. Now that we have not applied any of those, we're just starting from the very beginning, and then we grow as we go. So range, I want to write AIN3701 inside cell A1. So I'm going to call my A1 in this way. I'm going to say range. All right, then I open my bracket to call A1 to say whatever result I want to put must go to A1, cell A1. So I'll put in an apostrophe or what you call quotation mark, and then I'll put my A1 to say this in cell A1, and I close the bracket. This is me calling it, right? Then what do I want? So that's my object and my name. This is my object. I use range. My name is A1, And then the property that I want to do, I want a value. So I'm going to say dot value, no space, ne? Not a space. Maybe it looks like it's a space, but there's no space. I'm continuing. Dot value, and then what action? I want it to write for me AIN, but AIN, I have to put it in inverted commas because it's not a sale. I have to put it in inverted commas. That's the value I want to be assigned there. AIN3701. Close. This is a code in that format, object name property action. This is a code that I've just done, and then it will go. Once I go to Excel, I do this in VBA editor, what called VBE. All right. Then when I go to Excel and I go to A1, it will bring me the result to say AIN3701. Okay, so that's how it's done. If I want to use the cells object instead of the range object, like I said, the range object is the easier one to use. If I want to use the cells object, I'll just say or. The cells object is going to be as follows. Please take notes that the cells object changes what you know in Excel. So in Excel, what we normally do is we start with the column. This is how we call our cells. We start with the column, then we go to the row. So I'll say column, which is A, and then row 1, A1. But when it comes to cells object, it changes that. We start with the row first, then the column. So it starts like this, right? And they don't use alphabet, use the number. Use alphabet number. Okay, I'm going to explain what I mean by this. So we know that is row 1, right? So it's going to be cells 1. Then my column, I'm not going to say A. Which number is A in the alphabet? So remember A, B, C, D. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to use 1. 1 represents my A. 2 will represent B. 3 will represent C and going forward. So that's how you do your cells. All right? Your cells. Let me write. I don't know where I should write. This is your cells objects. So guys, there's going to be a lot of thinking that is going to be done here, but practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the more perfect you become. All right? Practice makes perfect. So in that situation, as you can see there, my A1 will become 1, 1. That is if I'm using cells object. Okay. Now let's put this now. Let's do the same code, but now using cells object instead of range object. So it's going to be as follows. I'm going to say cells, open bracket. All right. With this one, you don't need to put inverted commas. I'm just going to say 1, which is my row 1, and my column 1, because it's also the beginning. Then I close. Then every other thing continues the same. Dot value equals to AIN 3701, which is the same thing, object name, property, action. All right. So that's how I'll write. This is assigning a value. If I want to put Naomi, I would have also done the same thing. In which way, where do I want to put now? Maybe A2. I'll say range A2 dot value equals to Naomi, inverted commas. If I want to put student number, range A1 dot value equals to open inverted commas, write the student number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, close inverted commas, same thing. Okay. So every time I want to write something in Excel, a word, a sentence, a number, whatever, I just want to write this thing to show in a particular cell, I will write it this way. Okay. That's the first way. Remember, guys, there are a lot of examples when you go to your study, guys. You're going to try apply those examples so that you can perfect it. Remember, this is just a summary. Then number 2, so that's the first one, is assigning the values. Okay, assigning value, that's the first. Remember what I said, you will have to pay attention to when doing code. We are still under sub procedure, so I've opened my sub procedure. Now I'm focusing on codes. I've left sub procedure alone. I'm now looking at codes. Writing VBA code. I think I should write it here. Let me write it as a topic. Writing VBA code. So that's what we are busy with now. Okay. There we are. The first thing to pay attention to is to assign value. The second one is the formatting. Formatting properties. Formatting properties. Okay. Formatting properties. This is now where I'm not writing a word or a sentence or a number, but this is where I want to format it. For example, I want something to be bold. I want something, maybe a word I wrote, maybe I wrote AIN3701. I want it to be bold, or I want it to be in a specific font size or font type, or I want it to be italics, or I want it to be underlined, things like that. Yeah? There are just many more. You have to also sit on your VBA to just learn these properties, guys. You really have to do research, because to teach you VBA, all of it is impossible. All right. So you have to do research also on your own. I'm just going to teach you the ones that I think you should really know. Okay. So in formatting, normally what we do in formatting, we want to change the color. We want to increase the size of the font. We want to bold or italics or underline. Okay. So I'm just going to teach you like at least 3 so that you can get the idea. Right. Right. So let's start. I'm going to use range. Remember I said range is the one that is mostly used. I can decide to use range or use sale. It's just the only thing that will be changing will be the first thing, the object part. It'll be the one changing. The rest is still the same. Okay. So that is why I showed you here the cells. Now, going forward, I'm going to use range, unless if I have to use sales, but I'm going to use range going forward. So, for example, I want to, number 1, I want something to be in color, right? And the color I want there to be is green. So I'm going to say range. I'm still going to use A1 for simplicity. So range A1. All right. What do I want to do? Dots. What I want to do is to put color in the interior. In the interior. So it's gonna be, my property is gonna be interior. All right. And then interior, there are different things that I can do with interior. So I have to be specific. In the interior, what must happen? Which one exactly are we focusing on? The interior what? So the interior color. This is not to be specific on the property that I've chose. Interior color, this must be equal to the action that I want there is green. But you don't just write green. When it comes to color, you will say VB green. So that's the color. It can be VB yellow, it can be VB blue, whatever the case is. So that's one way of writing when you want to put color. There's also another way with color that you can use what you call RGB, using the RGB. I'll put it here, RGB. Okay, using RGB colors. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. Okay, there was a class where I actually did this to explain this, and also took you to Excel where these are. Usually when you go to more colors, that's when you find these aspects. So every color that you know has red, green, and blue inside it. Okay, which is also something we all learned in VBA, eh? Yeah, so every single color in the world has an element of red, green, and blue. Some of them will be 0. Some of them will have 0 red, but it will have something green, something blue. Some of them will have 0 green, but something red, something blue, and something like just and so forth. All right. So if they want you to use the RGB in the question, they will give it to you. You're not expected to know the RGB of every color. You're not expected to, but there's also a way to know it. You can go to colors, more colors, and then check properties. Then you just click on a particular color. If you when you are just on a particular color, it will tell you how much of red, green, and blue that particular color have. So you can also know it like that. Anyway, when we go to Excel, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. But anyways, in the exam, test, assignment, whatever it is, whenever they're testing codes, if they want you to use RGB, they should give it to you. All right. So let's say they gave it to us, and our RGB is, for example, our red is 255, comma, our green is 192, and our blue is 0. So this was given to us. Now I want to use the same code to do the color, but this time around I want to use the RGB instead of just the normal color. How is it going to be different? Okay, please check this out. It's going to be this way. So equals to range. So this is in A1. Whatever is in A1 is what I want to put color to. Okay, dot interior. And in the interior, I want to focus on color. Okay, now Remember we say equal to VB green, VB yellow, VB red. Now here we're gonna say equals to the action. Now is gonna be RGB, red, green, blue, RGB, and then we open this 255,192,0, we close. Okay, so it's either you do color in this way or you do color in this way. Only if it is given. If they start say we want it green, then you just go and put green. If they say the RGB being what, then you use RGB. Okay, up to you. But look at the format of the code, or rather the formula or the syntax, what you call the syntax of the formula. Syntax of the formula is the same. I have my objects, my name, my properties. My properties can now be more detailed. Okay, my property, my action is still the same, just that with the color itself, we can either use the color or the RGB. That's for color. So all of this is formatting. I'm formatting what is already there. I'm not writing something like this one where I'm assigning a value. Assigning a value is where I'm writing the input, all right, onto my Excel. This is where I'm now formatting whatever input that is already there. So that's the number one. Another one I want to show, I think I should just be doing maybe like this just so we can see difference. Another one would be if I want to change the font size. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm using range, like I say, range objects, range A1 dot, this time around it's the fonts. So the property I want is font, not interior, eh? So font. Now font can be different things. Okay, the same font can be italics, bold, whatever. The same font can be size. The same font can be maybe type. All right, so it can be a lot of things. So you have to be in detail what it is. All right, so the font I'm looking for is the size of the fonts. Size, and the size must be equal to, you can decide, okay, let's just say 14. So it will now change the font size of that particular input that is sitting in A1 and make it 14. Okay, so different things can happen here, guys. You have to play around. Once you are busy with your VBA and you write fonts, it will tell you what are all the properties that can be font size, type, whatever. It will tell you. It will actually guide you. All right, Excel will guide you. Okay, so you know that, okay, I'm dealing with font type, font size, font bold, font what, so forth. Okay, then the next one I want to show you is I'll choose between bold and italics. Let me rather use bold because we bold more than we put italics, né? So let me use bold. Let's say the same thing I want it to be bold, right? So I'm gonna say again range. I'm using range object, range A1 dot. Bold is also part of font. So font, the font type, I want it to be bold. But you see, bold doesn't have like a size to say bold size 2+2, whatever. It's bold, it's just bold. So my actions should just agree with bold. So it's gonna be true. If it was italics, it will be the same thing. It will be font dot italics equals to true. It must just agree to what I'm putting in there, because it doesn't go further like the size, like the type, and all of that. Okay. Guys, this is formatting. There are a lot of properties, like I say, play around with Excel. Go there and write something. Write interior to tell you how many interiors they write. Font to tell you how many. Just write something that it will help you to put when formatting. Okay, there are a lot of properties that are under formatting. You can check that. All of that, you can check this in Excel. Right. So far we did what? Assigning values, formatting properties. We also showed you how the syntax of writing a code should be. Then we go on. So what if I want to write formula? Okay. So let's just say more properties and actions. Let me call this group more properties and actions. More properties and actions. Okay, so let's just say I want to do something else, maybe write a formula. Guys, you play around. You go to Excel, you check the properties, you can have formulas, you can have different things. You play along. Try them, try different things. There are a list of them. The list is numerous. Okay, I'm just putting in things that I feel can be tested with our level. Remember where we are right now. We are learning VBA. So these are the things that I feel like can come, may be tested, right? Has a high chance of being tested. That's why I'm using them as an example. But there's a list. The list is too long. You can just, all you need to go, just go to Excel, check your properties, you'll see them. Right. Anyways, I'll be showing you when you're in the Excel how you can use these things. So, for example, I want to write a formula because that one we're definitely going to do writing of formulas. Okay, so I'm going to go again, follow the same syntax of the VBA range. I'm still going to use A1, but let me just use A2. Range A2 dot, I want to add a formula. So I'm going to say formula. And the formula must equal to, all right? When you're writing a formula, you put inverted commas, then you put equals to. If you don't put equals to, it's gonna be like it's not gonna be showing as a formula, né? It may show like an assigning of a value, né? So there's gonna, so you see there is this equals to, which is part of the syntax of the VBA code. Then there's this equals to after the inverted commas to say that whatever I'm putting right there, it must be a formula. Okay. So for example, I want to add two things. Let's say I want to add A5 plus A7, maybe even minus A2. All right, then I close my inverted commas. All right, this is me writing down a formula. All right, guys, practice makes perfect. Sit on it, play around things, check all the properties that you can see, all the possible properties that you can see on what you call VBA coding. All right, so we're continuing, but before I continue, any questions? Okay, I'm going to continue. So then, another thing that you really need to know what they call best practices are adding comments. All right, guys, that one is a seriously important. Being able to add comments. Writing a code without adding comment, this is not a best practice. You know what they tell you best practice of VBA coding best practice? Not writing comments. Now, it's like there are different ways to do one thing. You know, in mathematics, there's different ways to calculate one thing. Let's say somebody wants to use your code. How are they going to know what you're trying to do? Because they may not pick up what you're trying to do. All right. So you have to always explain your codes. Always explain your codes. Whatever code you're about to do right now, let's say I want to format. So I wanted to assign values. I can write assigning values. Then I do my codes. Then formatting. Then I do my codes. All right. So it's very important that you do that. So adding a comment, you add an apostrophe first. All right. So this is not an inverted comma, it's an apostrophe. Adding comments. So that's what we're going to look at now. Adding comments. Okay. So you always start with an apostrophe. Apostrophe. Okay. Let's do this. So an apostrophe is this, ne? Okay. Don't know if I'm putting it right. Put that first, then you write. Whatever you are writing. So in AIN3701, they expect you to first start. This is one mistake we did in assessment 2. Every time you're doing a code, whether you open a sub procedure or a function procedure, you first of all put in this way. You always start everything like this. Let me put it here. In AIN3701, so they want you to say coded by, right? Here you're gonna put your student number. You put your student number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put your student number. Then they want you to say the date of the code that you're doing, right? For example, today is the 19th of October, 2024. Then they want the version. Actually, the coded by is the name, sorry. This is the name, then they want the student number as well. So coded by, for example, Naomi, then student number. The student number, then they want the date, then they want the version. The version here, the version they want to say 0.1. Okay. And the purpose. Every time you open a sub procedure, now you can open more than one sub procedures. You can open multiple sub procedures. Eh? If you want to do multiple things, you can open the multiple sub procedures. Once you end procedure, you open another sub procedure with a different topic. It continues to another one. All right. So you can open multiple sub procedures, but each one of them must always have this. Once you say sub, for example, calculate salary, enter. The next thing is coded by student number, date, version, purpose. The next one as well, new sub procedure, maybe sub procedure assign values. I'm just saying. Then enter, coded by student number, date, version, purpose. Purpose is explaining what you are doing. Why are you doing this code? What do you want to achieve from this code? This is what they want in AIN. And we didn't do that when we did assessment 2. We only did it once. I think we did it with the sub procedure. When we went to function procedure, we didn't do that. So that was also another thing that made us lose marks, right? So that's, we have to do every time you open a function procedure or a sub procedure, and as many as there are, we put this code down. Very important. Right, so let us continue. Then we are still continuing, guys. Coding is broad, like I said, but if you can at least master these ones, then you can move with this one. So you can say, this is what I have. I can then take this ahead with me. I can move along with these items that I have with me. Okay. Don't forget also copying. So I'll call this one number. Okay, edit comment was not supposed to be part of this. I just added this. So I'll just call this number 4. Number 4, copying and pasting actions in VBA. Very important. Copying and pasting. All right. This is also very important. It also has codes that you have to follow. All right. I'm gonna give you these codes and how they are supposed to be, and I'm still using range range object. You can also use sales object. It's the same thing, right? Please learn those differences very well, the range and the sales. Okay, so let's say I want to copy a bunch of information and to take it to somewhere. Okay, and also I want the columns to auto fit the information when I copy the information that side. So let's start. So you see, I can even do something like this. I want to explain what I'm about to do. So normally when you do your comments, when you do your comment, the comment will be green. Okay, so I'm just want to just try it. So you say you do something like this. You say I want to copy data and paste with copy data and auto fit the information. Why am I using information? The data. Right. So for example, so I just decided to use that one deliberately. I deliberately wanted to change that color because that's how it looks when you do your comments. So for example, I want to copy range that starts from B2 all the way to F20. That is what I want to copy. So it's going to be dot copy. Copy is my property. Copy and copy what? Range H2. So my copying must take into range H2. H2. At the same time, I don't want to continue it here. I want to do it here. The auto fit, I want to do it separately. So now this way I'm copying to starting, it's gonna start at H2. Remember? So it's gonna be H2. This H2 will also go to something like this with 20. So this one is B to F, B2 to F20. So this will be H2L20. Right, so this is where to be copied, and where to be copied, I want it to be auto-fit, to auto-fit the columns. So dot columns, this is my other property. Now, there are a lot of things I can do with columns, okay? Columns, what must my columns do? It should auto-fit. All right, so I would copy, and wherever it's going, it must show me all the result that I need. That's what I'm saying, auto-fit, okay? What else can I do with copying and pasting? All right. Now, so what if data changes? Okay, if we decide to change things along this, let's say in this B2 to F20, maybe we insert something. So what happens? Okay, when data is manually changes. So we use what you call current region. All right. So to avoid changes when manually adding data. Adding data. All right, so this is what we're gonna use. Okay, we're gonna say range. We could also say starting from B. So I could either put it like this, or I could say when I do 1, it's like it's gonna start from whatever table of information I have there. It's gonna starting from B4. It will pick them all. All right. Then dot current. So the property here is current region. All right. Dot. You see, I've added current region before I can copy. Copy range to go to B22. That's where it's going to start. Okay, this is just us using that. This another way to copy is to use special values, right? To copy and paste using special values, pasting with special values. I want to paste with special values. Special values. That's another one. Okay, like I said, guys, there are more examples on your guide. This is just the summary. This is what you're going to actually need to have with us when you are writing. So in case we forgot something, you can just check and be like, you know what you call the cheat sheet? Yeah, that. Just check like, oh, I forgot how this is done. How do we assign values again? You go and check, oh, okay, it was done this way. That's the kind of summary we're talking about. All right. So if I want to paste, so I'm going to say, I'm going to have to do this separately. First copy, then paste. Okay, unlike the other ones that we did. So you're going to say, for example, so it's B4, all right, dots. I'm using the current region dot copy. See, I'm not saying copy to H2 like the other one. This one I'm just saying copy. I'm copying, then I'm gonna paste, so it can paste with special values. All right. Then the next column now, range. Now where it's being copied to, it must be copied to H starting from H22. All right. Guys, there's no space. Let me write this properly. There is no space. It's gonna throw an error if there's a space. Okay, so range H22, that's where it's going to be pasted to, then comma, paste special. Now, once I write paste special, to take out for me a lot of properties that are underneath here. And then now the scenario has to tell you how do you want it to be pasted. So let's say we want Excel paste values. It's going to say XL paste values. One thing about VBA, do not make a typing error. It's going to throw an error. So instead of writing values with VALUES, I write VALUS. It will throw an error because it's spelled incorrectly. So spelling is very important, okay? So this is copying and pasting. If I want to copy information and paste them, but using a VBA, and then when I come to Excel, I'll just see the information pasted. This is what I do, okay? So that is copying and pasting. So guys, this is what you look out for. Let me just go back. Where did I start? Writing VBA code, pay attention to. Yes, this is what you pay attention to. This is the beginning of VBA codes. If you miss this part, where we are going, you're not going to get it. Because this is the beginning. It all comes back here. But we build on. We keep building as we go. We're going to build on to this as we go. All right. Then, okay, guys, you can learn about coding best practices. I think those ones are that one is just a self-taught. Let me just say read. Yeah, let me just say read coding best practices. Coding best practices. Right, this is important. That you know this. Okay, when working. Right, let's just read through this because if I have to go through it again, it's gonna make us longer. All right, this is just a theory. Just learn this. Let me continue with coding. All right. So now as we go, when you are doing your sub procedure, I'm coming back to sub procedure. Remember I said I'm under sub procedure. So a sub-procedure is a group of VBA statements that performs an action or sequence of actions within a group. So now with sub-procedure, they are now expecting us to declare variable. You cannot do sub-procedure without declaring variable. So once you have started your sub-procedure, then you are expected to then declare your variables. Declare variables. You are expected to declare variables. Now, what are those variables? Like I said in the beginning, guys, Excel and VBA are broad. They are not everything we're going to do, but these ones are the ones that we expected to know for our exams and assessments. Right, so the variables that you expected to know in AIN3701 are as follows, right? Boolean, which is not used much. Okay, this is used when I want to use things like true or false, or when I want to rate, maybe to rate to say 1 over 10 or things like that, I'll use Boolean, which is not much the use. And then there is also date. If I have a date, I have to declare it as a date. So whenever I want to use a date, I'm going to declare it as a date. So you're declaring variables. Then we have single. All of these things that I'm saying are also here. They are also in your coding sheets. This coding sheet that I was saying you need to print out when you're writing on Thursday. They are all there. They're all there. This is just a summary. So then we have single. We have double. Right, single and double. Let's first deal with this. So a single, this is when a number can have a decimal. So it's a short number, it's not a long number. If you go to your coding sheets, they even tell you how long, like I think it's 32,000, up until 32,000 or something like that, right? So this is when you have a number with that can have decimal. A number with decimal. Like it can have a decimal, maybe 20 rand and 40 cents. Okay, it has a decimal, so I'm going to use a single. But now a double is when the number is longer. A larger number, so use a double when it's a larger number. Okay, when you go to your coding best practice, it tells you exactly how large they're talking about. I think it was 1,000,000 or something that we were reading. All right, how large the number is that we use double. But we prefer to use single because we don't think we're going to deal with the long numbers like that. But in a situation where you use very large numbers, then we use double. Right, so you're declaring this before I can assign my values. See the assigned values that we're talking about here. Here, before I can assign my values, I have to first declare what this should be. For example, something like AIN3701, I'll declare it as it's a text. It's a text, so I'll declare this as a string. Anyways, we'll get there. All right, so when I'm dealing with numbers, that. Then there are also another two categories of numbers, integers. This one we used it a lot. Integers. All right. An integer, this is the number without decimal. Okay, when a number does not have a decimal, number without decimal. Okay, so if it's just a number that I'll need, maybe how old are you? See, there's no decimal when you talk about age. I'm either 30 or I'm 31. There's no, I'm 30.5, I'm 30.6. No, there's no such. It's either I'm 30 or I'm 31. You see, that's so integer. If you have a number like that where there's no need for a decimal, instead of using a single, I'll use an integer. All right. Then then we have also long. Long goes with integers that are longer. Called long. Okay, I can declare the number as a long, provided it's an integer that is longer. So this is a longer form of integer. Okay, that is long. So basically they are about, is it 9? There are 9 variables that we're gonna know for AIN2601, but does not mean out there are 9. There are about 15 or so out there, but for us, we're only going to know 9, which are going to be tested in our AIN 3701. All right, so we continue. So we have long, and then we also have object. You can also declare something like an object. For example, a worksheet, workbook. Those ones can also be declared as an object. Then you can declare something as a string. This is what I was talking about. When it's just a value, the string, or a string means a text, né? What we normally call text in Excel. All right. So, like for example, AIN3701 is just a value. I'm gonna declare this as a string. All right. For example, Naomi. Naomi is a text, so I'm gonna declare it as a string. Okay. So basically, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last one is variant. All right, variant. Guys, variant, you have to be very careful. So Excel expects you to insert. So with Excel, you're supposed to insert. I did a video on that. If you go through those videos, I showed you how to do that. Insert what is called an option explicit. And there was a mark for this in the assessment too. If you didn't have, if your Excel, your VBA, sorry, if your VBA code did not have this option explicit, you lost a mark. I saw it in the assessment too. Okay. So it's important that you insert this already before the exam. If you have not yet inserted it, I've covered it on the VBA recordings that I did, the VBA classes. So if you have not, please do so. All right. Now, the reason why we are expected to insert option explicit is because of the variable variant. So variant takes out a lot of bytes. So it takes out a lot of storage space. It has high storage. Variant has high storage. And because of that, it makes our VBA code to be slow. VBA becomes slower, right? Because it's the speed is becoming slow because it takes high storage. So what happens? A variant is automatically done when you have not declared a variable. Okay. So what happens? It's automatically declared. VBA automatically declares this variable if no variable is declared. If no variable is declared. So if we don't declare anything, we put something there, let's say it's a number, maybe just your age, like 30. And then you don't say that this 30 is supposed to be, for example, an integer. What Excel VBA will do is would automatically make it a variant, but a variant has a high storage, so it makes our whole VBA code to run slower. So what we do is we insert the option implicit. This is solving this problem. The option implicit will say no, this VBA will not go through if you don't declare the variable. So it will stop variants from coming automatically and say no. It will refuse and say you have to declare the variable. Okay, so that's what the option explicit does. It actually makes life easier than having to automatically have something being declared as variant. Guys, this will make sense when I do the assessment 2 with you guys. So when we do the assessment 2 with you guys, it will make sense. Okay, so basically that's how it works. I'm gonna just do a example of how to declare a variable. All right, so I'm trying to make sure we finish everything quickly so we can start with what you call the assessment 2, the practical side of things. I think we're gonna take a break in between so that you guys, your brain can also rest. But let's go. Yeah, time is running. Okay. So how do we declare a variable? How to declare a variable? Remember, every time you have a sub procedure, you must declare your variable. Right, so let's continue. How do I declare that? So it's gonna be like this. This is the syntax. Let me just put the syntax there. So you're gonna say dim. So the moment you say dim, it knows that it's about to declare a variable. Dim, then you put the variable name. For example, dim maybe dim salary, for example, yes, dim salary as double or as single. It can have decimal. Okay, so as single. Okay, like that. So dim the variable name. All right, and then dim it as, so dim variable name as the data type. Okay, so that's how they are. Remember, there must be no spaces in between, no space. Okay, so that's the syntax of how to declare your variable. So for example, just put G, e.g., I want to declare customer name. So the name, remember, name is a text, right? So I'm going to say dim, right, dim customer. This must be no space. Customer name. You see how I do it? Or I can put an underscore, but there must be no space on my customer. Okay, dim that as string because this is a text. Okay, now let's say I want to, okay. So I said customer name. Let's say I want to dim customer account or account number. Okay, so I'm gonna say dim account. Let me use underscore. Account number as integer. Because account number is not going to have a decimal. Okay, these are just an example. These are just an example of how you can declare your variable. And then after declaring the variable, then you come back to assign this variable. So this variable must then equal something. Okay, so you declare it, then you assign it. Let me do this here. After this is the next step. Let me do this. All right, the next step is now to assign it. So I'm saying that the customer name is string. I'm declaring customer name as string, right? So then I can assign it to say set, okay, customer name, my name, all right, set customer name to be equal to, for example, range. I'm just bringing this range A1. If the information is already there, dot value Naomi. Okay, so this is how they bring it together. This is how they bring it together. Anyway, we're gonna do more on this as we go. So I just wanted to bring this here to show you, but let me not bring too much so that it confuses you at the end. We don't want confusion. Okay. Now, that is declaring a variable. That is how you do with variables every time. So you're gonna do, so we're building, you see, before we were just saying range this, range that, range this. We're just going straight to the code, but now we have to declare the code before we can assign it. Okay. Then there are other two things that you also need to know, and we are still with sub procedures. We're still talking about variables. There's two things that you need to know before we go to function procedure, right? The input box and the message box. Guys, this is very important. Most of the time, they would say in the assessment, they will say that use an input box, use a message box. What are these two? These two must be understood. They must be understood in detail, all right? An input box and a message box. Okay. Firstly, what is this? What is an input box? What is a message box? Then we'll take it from there. So an input box is a simple dialog box, a simple dialog box that allows a user to match a single entry. Okay, so let's make an example. All right, let's make an example. So what is this task? Here I can ask a question. I can ask a question or allow an option to be put on the question. Okay. So for example, when you add a button, these ones they usually work with buttons. Let me bring back my red. Where was my red? Let me bring back my red. These two usually works when you add a button. And also I've covered this on the classes, on the recordings. Okay, when you add a button, then the input box and message box works very well. So input box is when I'm actually bringing in maybe a question, especially if there are options. If there are options onto something, then I can bring in a question. Okay, for example, to calculate my salary, I would need the days that I've worked, the days worked multiplied by the rates per day. So I can ask you, how many days have you worked? And then you put that, and then I'm able to calculate. Maybe the next question will be, maybe the rate is there. Let's say the rate is fixed, but I need to know how many days you've worked or how many hours you've worked. I'll ask you, how many hours have you worked? 10 hours. Then I can do the calculation and give you the answer. All right, so that's what an input box basically does, that dialogue like that. So we're going to make an example. Let's say e.g. I'm just going to do the example here. Okay, I want to start by declaring something. Let's say student name. So I'll start by declaring my variable. So I'll say dim student name as string. Right, then the next thing is now my input box. So I then want the student name. You see where we were saying assign, eh? And then want the student name. It should be together the way they were. Please don't make a mistake with spelling. It will not take it. Yes, student name is equal to input box. It's going to create an input box. And in the input box, this is the message I want to see. What is your name? Okay, this one is the simplest example, but yeah. What is your name? Okay, it can ask that in the input box. Now, the message box usually will bring in the result. All right, the message box usually brings in the results. So let's just also explain what a message box is. So a message box, let's define it. This is a special type of visual window, a special type of visual window which can display a message to a user. Can display a message to a user. Yeah, that's what a message box is. So they usually work together, but you can use a message box without an input box. Anyways, the more you practice, you'll see that. But usually they work together. And some of the instruction will say, we want to see an input box, we want to see a message box. Please master these things. So that one, assessment 2, guys. Assessment 2 is a perfect example to practice VBA from, because it has a function, it has a sub procedure, it has an input box, it has a message box, it has a button, it has selections, it has, what's this one? Sequence. It almost every aspect of VBA is covered in your assessment 2. Okay, that is why I want to touch on it. But let's move as we are going. So let's make an example of how a message box will then come in. All right, so I'm just going to continue this. I'm continuing with that thing. Dim student number as string. Student number is equal to input box. What is your name? Then the message box. I'm just continuing it. The message box. This is how you write it in VBA. MSG. Okay, the message box will then be equals to, this is now going to pop the message that you're going to be replied. So what is your name? You may type your name now. The message must be replied in this way. So it will say, the message we want to say is welcome. And then this welcome, and then we want to also to say end. So you leave some space and your student name. That student name that we've been talking about will also show here. So if you say your student name is Naomi, then the message will say, welcome, Naomi. and then we close. So this message box will show you the extra message that should come from it. Okay, guys. So as for sub procedure, this is those are all the summaries I wanted to do on sub procedure. I know there may be more, but these are like the main that you need to know. But practice makes perfect. Remember, this is the practical topic. It's not so much of a theory something, but at least to have this is going to help us to work when we begin to work. Okay. So basically that is it. Do we have any question before we go? I want to move to function procedure. Any question? Right, so I'm moving to, I just want to see how I did the sub procedure. Okay, I did a star. So sub procedure, we're still under sequence. Guys, all of this thing is still sequence. So you see most of the work on VBA is done under the sequence programming structure. All right, we're still under sequence. Now we're done with sub procedure. I'm now going to function procedure. Okay, function procedure, guys, is very short. It's not a big one. Function procedure. So I can either have a sub procedure or a function procedure. Those are the only two when I'm doing my VBA codes. All right, so what is this function procedure? Okay, so this is a group of VBA statement that performs a calculation. That's the difference. This one performs a calculation. So I use a function to do a calculation. All right, so it's a group of VBA statements that performs a calculation and returns a single value and returns a single value. Okay, so basically this is it. We even use our function procedure to write a formula. We can create a formula with this function procedure. Right, that's what it does. This one only does calculation. So this is what I was saying. The mistake we did with our assessment 2, though everything was going well, but what we did as a mistake was that we performed the calculation under the sub procedure instead of performing it under the function procedure. All right. And you can do your calculation under sub procedure. It's not wrong. You can. But the problem in this assessment 2 was that the instruction was specifically saying that the calculation must be done under the function procedure. So I wanted to just clarify that. That's what they wanted. They wanted those calculations that we did under the sub procedure was meant to be under function procedure. Under normal circumstances, you can do your calculation under sub procedure. You can. It's not wrong. But the instruction was that it must be done in function procedure. That is why marks was lost, although the calculations were right, but they were done on the wrong procedure. Okay, so that's what we had to learn. I hope you guys are going to learn that also. In case this same thing comes in your exam on Thursday, you should be able to pick it up. All right, so that's what I wanted to say basically. So with the function procedure, you do the calculation, and here what you do is you declare a constant. All right, you declare a constant. Sometimes they are used together. If I have to do a longer calculation, I'll still have to declare my variables like I do with sub procedure because the calculation is longer. All right, because some variables still needs to be declared, but mostly with the function procedure, you declare constant. You declare constant. So here you have to declare your constant. All right, so here you will declare your constant. Okay, constant depends on the calculation that you're doing. And your constant is usually a fixed value. This constant is a fixed value. It's not like a list of data set like we did the other time when it comes to the variables. Variables, we say declare as a string, declare as a what you call date, declare as a single, as a double, as an integer. All those things is not the same as a constant. A constant depends on whatever formula you're doing. You're declaring the fixed value. For example, e.g., for example, you say, I want to calculate dollar. So I'm going to declare a constant. This is how you write your constant. CONST. So this dollar becomes my constant to say that dollar will be equals to 19 rand 95. All right. So this is now me saying this will be my fixed. Whenever I refer to my calculation of a dollar, I know that every dollar means 19 rand 95 cents. So that is me declaring the constant. Every other thing continues the same. It's still the same. So there's nothing much to say about function. Guys, function is straightforward like that. That's where you do your calculation. Every other things we learned on coding is still the same. I'm still going to do my normal coding. I can still put my input box. I can still put my message box. I can still declare other variables that I want to use. I can still apply the range, all this copying and paste. I can still do all of these things. The only thing we've added here is that with the function procedure, I'm doing a calculation and I can declare a constant. I can create a formula with function. So it has to do with calculation more than anything else. Okay. So that is that. Guys, that is basically that. Okay, other things you can just read there. It's not that important. I think from there, I am going to go to, okay, I want to go to selections, but before I go to selections, I want to look at operators. Please also read through about determining the last row. I don't think it's important for me to do it here. I think it's very straightforward. Just go and read also determining last row. All right, yeah, doing that as well. Let's go to operators. I was going to leave operators out, but let me just put it here. It will help us when I am explaining the assessment 2. It will help us. So guys, once we're done with this summary, we're going to take a break and come back to do the assessment 2. So as you can see, it's a lot. I don't think we do the whole revision today. I would suggest that we do another one on Monday at 6 p.m. where I can now deal with maybe data analysis and dashboards. Okay, so today I can just focus on VBA so that we understand. We come out, there must be value. Instead of just pushing everything on, there must be value that comes out of the revision. Okay, so on Monday 6 to 9, we can do the elements of data analysis and and dashboards. That's part 2. Part 3, remember we agreed part 3 is just the theory, né? You do your summary and that's it. So part 2 is what we're going to do on Monday. So that today we can focus our energy here and come up with value. Okay. Right. I want to go to selections and loops. Before I go to selection and loops, I want us to look at operators. Now, also in VBA, we also have operators like a normal maths and Excel also. We also have operators like your normal operators. Operators are divided into 4 groups. They're divided into 4 groups. Okay, group 1 is your arithmetics. Right? These are your normal add, minus, plus, minus, multiplication, but the Excel multiplication, remember it's an asterisk, and then your division, which is a slash. So this is arithmetic. Your normal, you still use this plus, minus, even with VBA when you're busy with your codes. Then there is comparison. Group number 2 of operators are your comparison. Comparison operators are things like greater than, less than, equals to. All right. Then there's also this one that is not equals to. This means not equal to. Please, if you didn't know, please know now. If something is not equals to, this is how they do it in Excel. This is the Excel form of doing it. All right. And also we can have greater than and equals to, or equals to, greater than or equals to, or we can have smaller than or equals to. All those your comparison operators. Okay, if you want to compare things, those are your comparison operators. Right, then we have logical operators. We don't use all of them, but the first two is highly used. Yeah, logical. Right, there are 4 groups. The logical operators, this is when we use things like and. If I want to throw in an argument, I could also use or. Okay, so and is when both the statements are true. Both are true. Like I said, this one is not, you're not going to use this one much, né? Or is when one is true, only one is true. right? Then we have okay, these are the ones nots. Let me just use nots. Okay, there are many more, but these are the ones that you're gonna use, you may use. This is when it gives the opposite of true. Okay, these are the one you may, but rare. Okay, the first two are going to be used definitely. Logical, maybe. Then the last group is string. Remember, string is the one for text, né? The one for text or values. Okay, so here is when we are combining. All right, so you can either use plus or you can use this. All right, this end to combine. So these are used to combine items. Okay, to combine, let's say Naomi Kinkela, I can now combine them and use plus or use the AND function to combine my names. Okay, that's how it works. Those are your operators. These can come in any way. Can come in when you're using function procedure. This can come in when you're using sub procedure. Right. So guys, with the sequence, we are done. That is sequence. These are, like I said, most of the work is done on sequence. That's the one that you use a lot. Remember, with sequence, I can also run a macro recorder on that because there's a pattern that is happening. You can run a macro recorder. Now, where we are going now, macro recorders are not going to work. Macro recorders are not going to work where we are going. Okay, so that was the sequence. As for sequence, we are done. That was the first programming language. Under the first programming language, we learned that I can do a VBA code using either a sub procedure or a function procedure. Sub procedure is where I do all my statements of VBA. I can assign values. I can copy and paste. I can format. I can create formulas as well, and all of that. Right? And then we also learned the syntax or the format of VBA, that it should have an object, should have a name, should have property and action. We learned that. We learned different things as well there. We learned now the function procedure that we can create a formula. We can actually make a function that is not, that never existed at Excel before. Remember, Excel has functions. For example, sum, VLOOKUP, and things like that. We can create one. We can create a function that Excel does not have. We can create it using the function procedure in VBA. All right. And then where we have to declare constants and stuff. And we also learned that under sub procedures, you have to declare variables by using data sets like your string, like your long, like your integer, like your dates, like your boolean, like your objects and stuff and stuff. We have to declare variables. Okay, so those are everything that we learned. We also learned about the input box and message box, especially when combined with a button, where we can actually ask a question, then get a reply as a message using a message box. Okay, so that's everything we learned under the sequence. And all the things we learned, guys, remember, it's a build-up. Now, in accounting, generally, we build up, right? So as and it's a build-up. So everything we learned is not only gonna work on a sequence. Some of them we're still gonna use them in selections and loops, especially the operators and other things. You're still gonna use them. All right, you're still gonna use a sub procedure, whether I'm using a selection or a loop. I'm still gonna use a sub procedure. I can also use a function procedure, even if I'm using selections or loops. Okay, so it's just a build up. We're just building up. Right. So that was that. That was sequence. Then I'm gonna go to selections. Guys, now what we left it is very little because we're not gonna go into long details anymore. We're no longer going to long details. Selections are straightforward, loops are straightforward, and we'll be done. Like we're done, guys. It's not a lot anymore. So let's go to selections. We already explained what these are, right? Selections, we ask a question to know what is the next step. That's what it is. So I'm not going to explain it again because I've already explained what it was. Okay, you ask a question to know what is the next step. So with selections, we're going to have two main types. We're going to have two main types, and then one type is divided into two. Okay, so we have two types of selections that we can use. Number one, let me use black. Number one is the if statements. If statements. That's number one. The if statement is divided into two. All right, the if statement is divided into two. 1.1, it's the if then else statements. If then else. Okay, that's the first one. So with if then else statement, this one is normally done when you are using when you only have two possible results. Two possible results. Like our normal if. It's either it's true or it's false. Let me type this properly. Spell this properly. Possible. Okay, when you have two possible results, that's when you use the if then else statement. All right, let me make an example. For example, the pass mark is 50. All right, there are only two things. It's either you get 50 and above, or you pass. So for you to pass, you must get 50 and above. And if you get less than 50, you fail. So the only two conditions is pass or fail. That's when you use the if then else statement. So these are selections, right? If then else statement. So these ones are called statements like that. So how do you do this? So let's make an example. I want you to follow the example very well. Let me use blue for the examples. I'm gonna start from the beginning, like sub, what, I wanna call it something. So let's say sub. I want to do what? Final mark. Okay. So we're going to say sub if final mark. All right, so that's what I want to call it. Okay, then of course when I open my sub, usually when you open, you put you will do this, and then you press enter, like open bracket, close bracket. Let me put it nicely so we can all see. This is how it's gonna start, right? I open my sub procedure. Okay, once I open my sub procedure, next thing is to declare my variable, isn't it? All those things that we learned. So I'm going to declare my variable. I'm going to declare my final mark as, so I can either use single, or I could use double. Double is a very long number, so I don't think that will be long. I could use. Now, the mark, is it going to have a decimal? If it's having a decimal, I'm going to use single. If not, I'm going to use integer. All right. So you have to now know, are we going to have a comma in the number? Maybe not. Maybe yes. If it's yes, single. If not, integer. So let me just put it in integer just in case there is a comma. Something. So dim final mark as single, or you can use integer like I said. If there's no comma, you can use integer. Right, and then now assign it. This final mark must be equal to, all right, I want to assign it to a value, but I'm not going to use range equals to, because there's a condition here. There are two possible results. There's a condition here. So I'm going to create an input box. You remember the input box we spoke about? You see how they're all coming together, né? So my final mark, I want to create an input box. The input box should ask you the mark. Okay, and it must say something like, what is your final mark? What is your final mark? Question mark, and then close the bracket. Okay, so that's the message that's gonna pop. Now I'm gonna bring in my if statement. Let me even change the color so you guys can see. So all these three steps that we learned, sub procedure, we learned it already. Declaring variable, dimming variable, declare what, we learned it already. Then assigning it, we've also learned. Input box, we've also learned. So now let's bring in the if statements. How does it come in? Then from there now, I want to now do my calculation of if. So if the final mark is the result, and we've already declared it. We declared it as a single. If the final mark is greater than, these are the operators that we just learned, is greater than or equals to, remember we learned this just now, the comparison operators. If it's greater than or equals to 50, which is the pass mark, all right, then please learn that. That's how you do your if then else statement. Then the result would be I want the result to be in a message box. So I say then it must give me a message box, MSG. It must give me a message box that says pass. Okay. It must give me a message box that will say you have passed. So you put your result, and once you put your result, you press enter. It will either tell you you passed or you failed, depending on if the mark is above 50 or less than 50. All right. Okay, so that will be the answer. Else, if that is not the result, else, what else? If it does not say pass, that means the condition is not applied. It's not greater than or equal to 50. Else, the message box is going to say, the message box is just going to say fail. Okay. And then you must end the if, end the, what is it called? The if then else statement. So you're going to say end if. Once you say end if, then you, of course, end sub procedure. End sub. See, I used two different colors for you to see that these are the sub procedures that we've been learning about. And this is the if else statement that we've been talking about. Okay, if then else. So this is when you have two possible answer. Now, I can also use the second option of if statement. This is when I have three or more, not just three or more results. All right, so this is going to be 1.2. Okay, this one is when I have three or more results. This is called if then else if. If then else if again. Remember, this one is if then else. This is if then else if. So this one can have three or more possible results. Three or more possible results. Okay, if then else if. So let's apply this. So let's say in the same way, we are saying that you can pass with a 50, but if you get a 75, it's a distinction. So there are three responses here. You can get a distinction, you can get a normal pass, or you can fail. So there are three possible results. All right. So here we're going to do it this way. Let's start with our sub procedure. Or just because of time, let me just go straight to the if, because of time. So you can just apply the sub procedure the same way, it's the same thing that happened. All right. Okay, so I'm just starting with the if already. So if final mark is greater than or equals to 75, that is my main condition, then this is what will happen. I'm going to get a message box, and the message box is going to say a distinction. Remember, we had already put an input box, all these procedures are the same. All these are the same, and even this. I'm just changing the inside. So the message is going to say distinction. So you have not just passed, you've passed with distinction. Right, else if I'm adding another condition. Else if the final mark is actually greater than or equals to 50, and you see that end, this on the operators, and both true, and also the final mark is actually less than 75, then see that then the message box is going to say this is just a normal pass. Right. But if the two of these are not applicable, all right, else, you see the other one was if this is not applicable, straight else. But this one, if the two are not available, then else, the message box is just going to give me the answer of if the two are not applicable, that you have failed. All right, and then you end if. Don't forget to end if. Okay, so that's how it works. That is your if statements. That's how the if statements works like. Okay, remember we say there are two types of selections. The if statements, which are divided into two. For the first one, only for two possible reasons. The other one for three or more possible reasons. Results, sorry. And then the number two is the select case statement. Number two, that was the if select case statement. I can actually use that as well in the same situation. Select case statements. So instead of using the if, the same situation, I can use the select case statement. This one also gives more than three or more results. Also gives three or more results, possible results. Okay, it's the same thing. Instead of using if then else if, I could use a select case statement. Please check how it's done. So the select case statement is this way. I'm going to start from the beginning. So let's say sub, I'm using the same situation. I want to calculate my marks. So I'm just going to say cell calculate marks. Sub calculate marks, open bracket, close bracket. Then I'm going to, of course, declare my variables. So dim final mark as integer. Okay, I'm dimming this one as an integer or single, doesn't really matter. And I want my final mark. So I want to set it. My final mark must be equal to an input box, which is the same thing we did that side. And the input box should ask, what is your mark? What is your final mark? Question mark, close, close. Right, so all of that is now done. Now I bring in the select case statement. The select case statement is this way. So the case, I'm presenting the case. So I'm going to call this is select case final mark. Okay, then condition. The case is greater than or equals to 75. All right, then it must bring, if the case is greater than or equals to 75, then give me a message box. All right, and in the message box, it must say distinction. So this one doesn't talk too much, just go straight to the point. Okay, so then if the case, so we continue, the case is between 50, case is 50 to 75. So less than, basically. Then the message box will say this is a pass. All right. If all of those things are not applicable, if the two are not applicable, case else, message box should give me a fail. Okay, and then you end select. Just like you end if, this one you end select. And then you come back to close, you end sub. All right, so it's basically almost the same thing as the if then else if statement, just that this one you use select case, almost the same thing. Remember, what is selection? Selection is for us to know the next step, we ask a question. So remember, there can be two possible answers or three or more. Okay, so basically that's what it is, guys. That is it. That is selections. We are done with selections. And then the last one which we're going to do today before we take our break, the last one we're going to do today before we take our break is loops. I've already explained what loops is, so we're just going straight into the types. Right, loops. Remember loops, we keep asking the same question until something happens, then we stop. All right, so that's what loops is about. We ask until we get somewhere, then we stop looping. Okay, so loops. So there are basically also three types of loops. All right, there are three types. There are three types of loops that we're going to look at. Number one is the for next loop. It's for next loop. Okay, so what does this do? What does this entail? The for next loop. All right. Okay, so this one, the looping is controlled by a counter variable. A counter variable which starts at one value, and stop at another value. Okay, for example, I'm counting 1 to 10, starts at 1, ends at 10. So because they keep repeating the same thing. So loop is actually, it solves the automation even better, especially if the procedure is going to be the same. You understand? For example, we're saying we want you to print 500 documents. The document is going to be done the same. Print the first one, print the second one, same way until we reach 500. But the problem with loops is now, if you don't tell loops where to end, it will continue forever. And it may crack the system, ne? It will continue forever. It will just be forever, infinity. If I don't tell it stop at 500, it will continue to do the same thing. So they must be able to say, we want you to print document, but up to 500. So once it reaches 500, it should stop looping. But if you don't say up to what, it will continue. So this one, the for next loop, we're basically putting two values to say start here and end here. All right. So this is how we're going to do an example of it. Okay, guys, I'm going to really run away from the sub, but maybe it will not make sense if I do that. Yeah. Okay, let me just use it as a sub and then bring in the loop. Right, so we open our sub procedure. Just an example. Open my sub procedure. Let's say I want to say learn to count. That's what I'll call it. Okay, so I open my sub procedure. I declare my variable dim. So my counter row, we're gonna have a counter row. I talked about it here, controlled by a counter variable. I want to start with the row. I want to count down, so I'm gonna use row counter underscore row, as we are counting a number without a decimal, so it's an integer. Okay, then we start with the loop. So I'm gonna use red for my loop. So remember for next, so we start with 4. For counter row to equal 1 to 10. Okay, so it's between 1 and 10. So this is how it should be. Here they're using cells, object instead of the range. Ne? You can also use range. I don't think it's a problem, but here we want to use cells just because to bring in that counter row into it. Remember, cells is first row, then column. Just for that, it makes more sense here. So counter row, comma 1 dot value equals to counter row. All right, and then next, a counter row okay, the next counter row, then you end sub. Okay, here you don't end the loop. Let me just bring this to blue so that we can understand what I'm saying. And sub. Okay. So what it will do, it will count every counter row So we start from 1, 2, 3 to continue to count until it reaches 10. So it comes back to give us this. Okay, you can also use column instead of counter row. You can also use column row, same way. All right. You can also be counting with the column in the same way. All right. Anyways, you can learn that in your what you call your study guides. You can do more examples. Remember here, we just want to make sure we get an overall understanding summary, and then we continue. So do more practice on your study guide. So this is the for next between counters, starting from something, ending from there. If you don't put end, trouble happens. Okay. The next type, let me go to the next type, is the do while loop. Do while loop. Okay. So what does this one do? The do while loop, this it executes its instruction, executes its instruction as long as a specified condition is met. As long as a specified condition is met. Okay, so for example, keep running as long as it's not raining. So the moment it rains, we stop running. I'm just saying, okay, that is just an example. So as long as it's not raining, keep running. And as soon as it starts raining, stop. But raining, it doesn't rain every day. So it may not be a good example. It may break the system. But I'm just giving an example just for us to pick up what it means. That the condition, as long as this condition is met, keep doing what you're doing. The moment the condition is no longer met, you stop. Okay? What else can I say? For example, let's say we're running 10 kilometers. So you keep running as long as it's not 10 kilo, as long as it's less than 10 kilometers. Once we reach, no, that's not the one. Well, that one will be the next one. Let me see. What else can I use that could make sense? Okay. Keep drinking water as long as you're thirsty. Yes, that's perfect. As long as you're thirsty, keep drinking water. The moment you're no more thirsty, stop. Okay, so that's what it's saying. The condition is still there. As long as this condition is still there, continue to do this thing. While this condition is no longer there, stop. All right, so how do you do this? So let's say we're still counting. We're still counting 1 to 10. Then how do we do this in do while loop? So with the 3 types of loop, I can do the same thing with all 3. But usually the lecturers will tell you that the for next loop is the easiest one to use, and that's what they say. Right, but you can use all 3 of them using the same situation. So let's start. So I'm saying sub, I'm calling it do while loop. Right, then I want to dim my counter as string, and I want to dim my value, I'll call it val, as integer. Okay, so then I want this counter, the counter must equal 1, the value must also equal 1. That's my starting point. Right, then let's do our loop. So we start, so do while the counter, which is equal to 1, that I've already set there, as long as the counter is less than or equals to 10. Continue to count as long as the counter is less than or equals to 10. Once it's above 10, you stop. Ne? So do that. Then here again, using sales, my row and then my column. So sales counter, comma 1 equals val. That will be the value. And remember, the value we also declared it as 1. So the value then must equal value plus 1. So that value must keep adding 1, but as long as it is less than or equals to 10. Okay, you keep adding. Then the counter as well You keep adding 1, counter plus 1, then loop. So this loop is like ending it, do while loop. All right, then we end our sub procedure. Okay, then we end sub. That's how it works. So do while 1, do while is less than 10. Right, guys, practice makes perfect. So these things, I'm just throwing it at you, and it's like, it looks at a lot of things we're just throwing at you, but practice makes better. So keep practicing. The more you practice, the more you know these things. All right, so that was do while loop. We did for next, we did do while loop. The last one is do until loop. Do until loop. Right, what is this all about? So this one, it executes its instructions until a specified condition is met. Remember, this one says as long as the condition is met. This one is until a condition is met. Okay, so you do this until that condition is met. Yeah, so that's the running one. Run until you reach 15 kilometers. So you run until 15 kilometers met, then you stop. Okay, not while, but until. All right. So let's do this. So we start our sub procedure. This example. So let's say our sub procedure is do until loop. Right. Then I'm going to declare my variable dim counter. Remember, we're using the same example, né? All three can use, same scenario can be applied in all three, basically. So my counter as string, then my value, dim value or val as integer, then my counter should be equal to 1 and my value should be equal to 1. Okay, I'm setting my values there. Then we do our do until. So we're going to say do until the counter, do until the counter is greater than 10. So you will do whatever you do until it is greater than 10. As long as it's less than 10, continue. Okay. Then this is how the formula is going to be applied. So we use the cells object, counter, which is the row, and comma 1, which is column A, equals to val, the value, and then my val will be equal to val plus 1. So we continue to add 1, but until it is greater than 10, then we stop. Right, then the counter as well equals to counter plus 1. Then loop. Do until loop. Once you are there, you end your sub procedure. Okay, guys, so that was it in terms of VBAs, automation, everything around VBA. Like I said, we did not do broad, but I picked the things that I felt you need to know for the exam. And thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please remember there is a part 2 and a part 3 that I'm going to upload as well. So once you're done with this one, go and also watch part 2. When you're done with part 2, also go and watch part 3. All the best with your supplementary exam. And if you do pass through, remember to come back and also let us know how it goes. Okay, if you have comments, remember to put on the comment section. If you wish to talk to me in person, you can email me. Check the email on the accounting with Naomi description. There is my email address there. You can communicate with me there. All right, see you